Hello, welcome to another episode of In the Trenches with Gang Green. I'm your host, Bubbs. Today we have another set of New York Jets player previews. This is episode 6 of the New York Jets player preview series. It is a Friday edition, August 2nd, and today we are going to be breaking down two more New York Jets, one on offense and the other on defense. We will be taking a look at wide receiver Allen Lazard and newly signed defensive tackle Leki Fotu in today's podcast. Before we begin, let me quickly tell you about our podcast partners over at SeatGeek. SeatGeek is an app that gathers tickets from all over the internet and puts it into one place to make it easier for you, the buyer. What makes SeatGeek so great is you know what type of deal you are getting on your tickets. They rate each ticket from a scale from 0 to 10, so you know what type of deal you are getting. Plus, my viewers, use promo code BUBSONSPORTS for $20 off your purchase. Click the link in the description down below to download the SeatGeek app. Once again, that is promo code BUBSONSPORTS for $20 off your purchase. This is anything tickets, plays, concerts, shows, sports, you name it. If you can buy a ticket for it, SeatGeek has it. Promo code BUBSONSPORTS for $20 off your purchase. Also, my friends over at Huga House, you see me rocking my Huga House hat right now. You want the hat I'm wearing or one of the hats that Aaron Rodgers wears all the time, even Shane Gillis, Shohei Ohtani, Tyler Conklin, many athletes and celebrities rock the Huga House apparel. If you want to get one of their vintage inspired hats, click the link in the description down below. That'll take you to the Huga House store. Use promo code BUBS for 15% off your purchase and get yourself some of the same swag that QB1 rocking and get yourself some Huga House swag. Once again, promo code BUBS for 15% off your purchase. All right, now into today's episode, New York Jets player preview number 6. Taking a look at Allen Lazard on offense and Leki Fotu on defense. We will start with Allen Lazard. This is a very controversial one. This is a very interesting player preview to discuss. I will tell you what, right before I started doing this podcast, I was writing down notes and getting all my information ready, and I don't really know how to describe Allen Lazard and the way to do this player preview because last year was so bad. And I really do not know what to expect from Lazard here in 2024. But either way, let's get started. He's 6'5", 227 pounds, 28 years old, will be 29 in December. So entering his age 28, age 29 NFL season. He is entering his 6th season in the NFL. He spent the previous first 5 years of his career in Green Bay, and then, of course, signed on with the New York Jets last season, was an undrafted free agent out of Iowa State. And Allen Lazard is very interesting, a very polarizing figure among the New York Jets fan base, among the New York Jets in general, because a guy that, of course, started his career, was on Jacksonville's practice squad, then went to Green Bay, spent 5 years there, got the big contract with the New York Jets, and was flat out terrible last season. There is no other way to put it. Allen Lazard was flat out awful after he signed a 4-year, $44 million contract to come to New York. And he actually signed it before Aaron Rodgers, but ended up teaming up with his former teammate in Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers, who, of course, only lasted 4 snaps, and quit on the team, was awful, was one of the worst receivers in football. There not much needs to be said about how bad Allen Lazard was last year, other than if you watch the New York Jets week in and week out, you know how bad he was. You know he quit on the team. He had the soccer ball out there at every single practice, had terrible drops, gave up, was so bad he got benched. And you kind of enter 2024 with not really knowing what to expect. Because when you look at what the New York Jets did in the offseason, they went out and brought in Malachi Corley. They went out and brought in Mike Williams. So you look at their receiving core, it's a lot more top heavy, and you have some questions around the depth, but they brought in a lot of guys to kind of push Lazard back on the depth chart. So you really don't know what Lazard's role is even going to be this year it should definitely be significantly lower, significantly less than what he had last year, because you look at your starting wide receivers, you've got Garrett Wilson, Mike Williams, and one of Corley or Gibson. And then you kind of look at Lazard as more of your fourth or fifth option, as opposed to last year where he went in a way after Corey Davis retired as the 1-2 punch alongside Garrett Wilson, which of course was beyond pathetic, was benched, was terrible, quit on the team. So it's going to be interesting just to start on what his role is like this year and what he looks like during the season. Of course, has gone off to a quick start here in camp. Don't want to discuss too much of what he's done in camp in this episode or in any of these episodes, more projecting what they can do. But I think all you can do is just hope that with Aaron Rodgers back in the fold, he's going to be more focused. He's going to be more locked in, and Rodgers can get a lot more out of him, can get what he got out of him in Green Bay, which was a productive receiver, suffers from drops, but not nearly as bad as he was last year. And that's the funny part is, this is a guy that's entering his 7th season through his previous 6 years in the NFL, not really counting his first year because he played one game with the Packers in 2018, but throughout his entirety of his NFL, drops have been an issue, right? Some inconsistency at times has been an issue. He's a guy that will make big plays in the red zone, make great physical one-on-one grabs, will make great plays downfield, but then have bad drops and have crucial drops and have timely drops. But you got to live with it because you expect him to make big plays and do other productive things. You're going to have to live with the drops. Last year, he didn't even do anything productive. It was drop after drop after drop. No big plays, no production, quitting on the team. And that's my point is when you look at last year's numbers, 14 games played, was benched, 23 receptions, 49 targets, 311 yards, 13.5 yards per reception, 1 touchdown. For a guy that's getting paid 4 years, $44 million. That's how bad he was. He was one of the worst, if not the worst receiver in the NFL last year. So the way I'm kind of looking at Allen Lazard's season is he can't be any worse than what he was last year. He can't be. He can only be better. I don't know how much better he will be. I don't know how much Rodgers can get out of him. I don't think he's going to be 788, 60 receptions, 6 touchdown type guy that he was in 2022 prior to signing with the Jets, because I just don't think that's going to be the role he's going to be in. But he can't be any worse. He can't be. And you got to hope that Rodgers can get something more out of him and he can be better, significantly better from last year when he isn't even saying he's going to have a huge season. I mean, if he goes out there this year and has 35, 40 catches for 530 yards and 3 touchdowns, that would be a significant jump from his measly 23 catches, 311 yards, 1 touchdown performance last year. So that's why it's kind of so weird to what to expect from Lazard this season. And that's why I'm kind of going into the year of, I'm going to sit back, see what happens. He can't be any worse than he was last year, and we'll find out if he can turn around his Jet tenure here or if this is going to be a 2-year disaster and he'll walk away. The Jets will get rid of him in the offseason. Now, when you just look at some of the numbers last season, that has got to be better. And I'll try and give you some signs as well for hope. Last season, 47.9%, just giving you some of the numbers here. We gave you these simple numbers. These are some of the advanced numbers. 47.9% catch rate was the lowest among 83 receivers with a minimum of 45 targets. As are his 0.68 yards per route run and 17.9% drop rate, all the lowest among receivers. On top of that, his 23.5% contested catch rate, which was a strength of his in Green Bay, not last year, he went 4 for 17 in contested catches, is 7th worst. And his 67.3% targeted passer rating is the 6th worst, even though he had just 1 interception thrown his way, and his 2.5 yak per reception was 8th worst. So bottom line is, he was statistically the worst receiver in the NFL in catch rate, in yards per route, and drop rate. And he was bottom 10 in contested catch rate, targeted passer rating, yak per reception. That's how poor. You give him some of the numbers, they're ugly. You don't need the numbers. You watched him play. he was beyond pathetic. Essentially just taking money and you playing around with the soccer ball, getting paid millions and doing nothing on the field. That was it for Allen Lazard. Now, the drops will always be a concern. That's not going to change, but you hope he can counteract the drops with actual productive plays and drops not be the only story of the 2024 campaign coming up this year. Now, reasons for hope, okay? Reasons for hope. He quit on the team. He gave up. Zach Wilson, Tim Boyle, Trevor Siemian, he wanted no part of it. Even if he didn't quit on the team, even if he was more focused, I still don't know how much you would have even gotten out of Allen Lazard, because the only receiver last year that actually made a significant impact was Garrett Wilson. Everybody else was streaky and or just non-productive. That's how bad the Jets offense was. Kind of a three-man show between Breece, Garrett, and Tyler Conklin. That was about it. And a terrible offensive line and a terrible quarterback. So I don't even know, even if Lazard was focused and remained locked in and didn't quit on the team and was still in the right mindset, I don't even know how much production he would have had. So just the fact that he's going to actually have a quarterback and a quarterback that he's had success with, that gives you reason for hope. You look at some of the previous numbers. He's always been a red zone threat. The Jets should be highly, highly productive this year in the red zone. Way more productive than they've been. And maybe some of that production goes to Lazard. From 2019 to 2022, he had 15 touchdowns, with ranked 17th among all NFL wide receivers during that time. So he was top 20. On top of that, from 2019 to 2022, and this is something that the Jets could get him more involved with, he ran 12.8% slant routes, which ranked first among wide receivers during that time. The Jets have kind of potentially here, Rodgers, in a way to try and get more out of him, gives him more route concepts, more routes that he's comfortable with. Give him more of those slant route opportunities that he saw in Green Bay, where he saw some success. More focus with Rodgers. In my eyes, it can't get any worse. I don't really know. It's going to be interesting to see how much play time he actually gets this year, because it's going to be Garrett Wilson, Mike Williams leading the way. You know, early on, he might get some with Mike Williams potentially being limited. But once Mike Williams is full, and then you'll get Corley evolving, and if Gibson plays well, you're looking at Lazard as more of your fifth receiver, maybe, at best fourth. So that's Allen Lazard. Not overly optimistic if you're a Jet fan. I don't think. I think most likely you're looking at Allen Lazard as a guy that goes out there this year, produces, has a decent season, let's say, and then you're probably looking at him, the Jets getting out of this contract, releasing him next offseason. Where Robert Saleh, that's how bad it got. Robert Saleh made the comment last year that they've got Lazard for another year, essentially telling you, yeah, this is a 4-year deal, but we can get out of it after 2 years. We're going to get out of it after 2. So it feels like this will be it for Lazard. I don't really know what Lazard can do this year. I think last year was so bad that even if he's decent this season, you're still going to look at this as a poor $44 million investment, and the Jets probably moving on. I would love to be wrong. Lazard goes out there and produces really, really well, and he's more focused and whatever. That'd be great, but I think all you're looking at is average, maybe slightly above average at best from him. Especially with the guys in front of him, and his role probably diminishing a little bit. So that's Allen Lazard. We move on now to newly signed defensive tackle Leki Fotu. Leki Fotu, 6'5", 335 pounds, 25 years old. He will be 26 in August, so entering his age 26 season. He was a 2020 fourth-round pick, 114th overall. By the Arizona Cardinals, coming out of Utah, and has spent all 4 years in the NFL with the Arizona Cardinals. This is his first season away from Arizona. The Jets signed Fotu on a 1-year, $2.5 million deal worth up to $4 million. And to me, the minute this deal went down, an under-the-radar move, a 1-year, feels like 1-year rental replacement for Al Woods. That's what I think this deal shows. When you look at Leki Fotu, not a huge name, not much of a, not a big cost, cheap 1-year deal, low risk to come in here and replace the run-stopping production that Al Woods had last season prior to his torn Achilles in that New York Giants game. You know, Al Woods was a guy that came in last year, same situation on a one-year contract, cheap contract, a veteran. You bring him in, run stuffer. Woods was very good through 6 games. And you saw the run defense take a little bit of a hit once Al Woods went down. He goes down 6 games in, tears his Achilles. Jets need that new big body presence. Fotu, 6'5", 335 pounds. When you actually compare the two, right? Fotu, 6'5", 335 pounds. Woods, 6'5", 331 pounds. So they're both very similar builds. They're both very similar players. They both have very similar play styles. Fotu's a pure run stuffer. He's not the guy that's going to get after the quarterback. He's not a guy that's going to rack up 7, 8 sacks, 6, 7 sacks in a season. He is going to be a run stuffing machine, pick up a couple tackles for loss, but just be a big body presence and maybe run into a half a sack, a sack and a half here and there. And that's about it. And those guys are big on that, big up front. Run stuffers don't get a ton of attention because they don't load up the stat sheet. You know, you can't look at Leki Fotu's ESPN page and feel great about this move because run stuffers, because they don't get sacks, they don't rack up a ton of tackles. They are guys that don't get a ton of attention. But you notice run stuffers are those type of guys that you notice more. You notice them more when they're not there. Because once those gaping holes start being present up the middle, and when you don't have that guy that can just stuff runs and there's openings and things like that, that's when you start to notice. That's when you start to notice, like, wow, they're really important. And I think Fotu this year is going to come in and be the exact player that Al Woods was. I mean, this is a guy that played 55% of his snaps last season, came on the run, or came playing against the run. Now, here are some of his numbers, right? 2023 last year, he played 11 games, 28 total tackles, 2.5 sacks, had 5 tackles for loss. In his career, he's had 56 career games played, 89 total tackles, 3.5 sacks, 12 tackles for loss. So again, 3.5 sacks in 4 seasons. He's not going to get to the quarterback. He's a 3, 4 at most, probably tackles for loss guy. Those 5 tackles for loss were a career year, and he actually had a career year. He was on his way to having a career high in tackles before he broke his hand. He's pretty durable. He played 11 games his rookie year, 17 over the next 2 seasons, and an 11 last year. So a 56 of a possible 68. So relatively durable. He's missed 12 games. Was end up able to come back last year for the final week after that broken hand. So ideally he probably plays, let's say 15 games this year, maybe misses a week or 2, but pretty durable. Really good season coming off for career here, and you're getting him kind of in the prime of his career, that veteran stage, 26 years old, entering year number 5. Now, when you look at some of his numbers, PFF, I'll say this, PFF hates him. PFF hates Leki Fotu. I don't know why. PFF's weird like that. There are some players that they love. There's some play styles that they love. And that's why I always say PFF is not the end all be all. Because if you look at Leki Fotu and his PFF numbers, they're not pretty. But when you look at some of the other numbers, when you look at some of the other analytics and his presence, especially when he's not on the field, much more positive outlook and gives you much more confidence. Last season, he ranked 22nd out of 100 defensive tackles who played a minimum of 200 snaps in run stop percentage. He had 19 run stops in 282 plays. That was a 6.7% run stop percentage. Again, 22nd out of a 117 defensive tackles that played a minimum of 200 snaps. So a very productive season for Fotu last year. Was top 25, was really top 22 among all defensive tackles in run stop percentage, 6.7%. Now, when you look at how that lines up to other Jets, Quinnen had 7%, Quentin Jefferson had 6.5%, Solomon Thomas had 5.6%, Al Woods was at 4.5%. Now, Al Woods, of course, is a little skewed, only played 6 games. If he played the full 17, who knows? But either way, 7% total, right? 7%, and then 6.5 for Jefferson. If Quinnen Williams or Leki Fotu played for the Jets last season, he would have had the second best run stop percentage on the team. his 6.7% would have been 0.3% behind Quinn Williams. Would have been better than Jefferson, better than Solomon Thomas, better than Al Woods. He was actually better last year statistically in run stop percentage than Al Woods. So you could look at this as a younger, more durable upgrade for the Jets over a older, aging Al Woods, who they took a chance on last year, unfortunately tore his Achilles. So I think in some ways you could look at Fotu as an upgrade. Another number that sticks out when you look at Leki Fotu. His yards per carry with Fotu on the field versus off the field since 2020. 2020, when Fotu was on the field, teams averaged 4.2 yards per carry. When he was off, 4.8. 2021 was the biggest difference. 3.6 yards per carry when Fotu was on the field. When he was off, 5.6. 2022, 3.9 yards per carry with Fotu on the field, 5.3 with him off. 2023, 4.6 on, 4.7 off. In his career, and this isn't the end-all be-all because things can change when a guy's on the field, off the field, but it does show you his run-stopping presence. Very important. Either way, in his career, when Fotu's on the field, teams average 4 yards per carry. When he's off, teams average 4.9. That's 0.9 yards more. So it's clear his impact. It's clear his presence. It's clear his big body up the middle is a force and is a positive for the Cardinals over the last 4 years, and hopefully is a positive for the New York Jets. This isn't a move that's going to, be a huge move, but it's a under-the-radar signing. It's a kind of a younger version of Al Woods. Very similar play style, run-stuffing guys. Run-stuffers don't get a ton of credit because, well, they don't get sacks. They don't rack up pressures. They don't rack up tackles for loss. They are 3-4 tackles for loss, 1.5 sack, 2 sack at most guys, but they stop runs and they're valuable. And that's Leki Fotu. And a Jets defense that hopefully sees improvement from a run-stopping perspective, which they should. So that's episode 6 of the New York Jets player previews. Allen Lazard and Leki Fotu. Let me know what you think about both these players in the comment section down below. And what are your expectations and all that good jazz. We'll be back with a lot more content coming your way. As always, stay tuned. Until then, JETS, 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 Jets.